For the first time in history, the high-powered job of White House Chief of Staff will be filled by a woman. President-elect Donald Trump has selected Susie Wiles, the co-chair of his campaign. Wiles has an extensive history in Florida politics, and WPTV's Michael Hoffman looks more closely at the selection.
Susie Wiles has been tapped as the new White House Chief of Staff. It's a position that many consider to be one of the most powerful in Washington. She'll have a direct hand in policy development and will be the right hand of the president for many daily operations.
Susie likes to stay in the background. She's not in the background.
Declaring victory on election night, President-elect Donald Trump introduced the world to Susie Wiles. This week, naming his campaign chair his White House Chief of Staff, writing, quote, "Susie is tough, smart, innovative, and is universally admired and respected."
The Ice Maiden. We call her the Ice Maiden.
The Ice Maiden is no stranger to the heat of Florida politics. Wiles worked on all three of Trump's presidential campaigns. Previously, she worked on Governor DeSantis' run in 2018 and helped lead Senator Rick Scott to victory as governor of Florida back in 2010. Scott writing on X, quote, "She knows how to build a great team, is a true leader, a trusted advisor, and brilliant tactician."
I think he made the perfect choice in Susie.
I spoke with Michael Barnett, the former head of the Palm Beach County Republican Party.
She's smart, she's tough, and she knows how to foster and maintain relationships, not just with those at the highest levels of power, but also the grassroots, people like me.
I asked Barnett what Wiles' appointment means for people in South Florida.
I will help create a strong, unified Republican front statewide with the highest levels of power in Florida.
In West Palm Beach, Michael Hoffman, WPTV News.
Here with our longtime political analyst, Brian Crowley. Susie Wiles, effectively as Chief of Staff, you're the gatekeeper for who gets the president's here as well on issues and concerns of the day, and that, of course, helps shape policy. Your thoughts? Cover this state a long time and have rubbed shoulders with all of them, including her.
Well, and I know Susie Wiles a bit, and you know, as we've seen, she's a very tough political operative. She's been a lobbyist and a political operative for many years. The daughter of sportscaster Pat Summerall, and I think she has a lot of potential in the White House to help keep things in an orderly fashion. She's not into the drama, which when you're talking about Donald Trump, there's often a lot of drama. But she's going to have a huge task ahead of her, and it's been a challenge for every other chief of staff that Donald Trump has had. So we'll see how it goes.
And the Florida political orbit, some have said, is a whole different beast than the political animal you deal with in Washington. It is going to be a transition for her. She once worked, and many argued helped make Ron DeSantis governor his first go-around, and they had a split. And many argued that was much to his chagrin when he dropped out earlier this year, his own presidential bid. She rarely goes on social media, but went on and said bye-bye.
Bye-bye, yeah.
She's a tough operator.
Yeah, she is a tough operator, and the schism between her and the DeSantis family, Ron DeSantis and his wife Casey, is still as deep as ever. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the future. With relationships between the governor's office and the White House.
Let's talk future, and let's make it Florida-centric. Senator Marco Rubio being touted as a possible pick for Secretary of State. Thoughts?
Well, I think it'd be a very interesting pick for Secretary of State. I think it's interesting that you heard Melissa, who is a Democrat, say, and she's very close to Marco Rubio, that she thinks he would be a great Secretary of State. But that would create a whole dynamic right after that. So with 2 years left in his term,
who has his seat?
Who does Ron DeSantis pick? One theory could be that Ron DeSantis picks himself, puts himself in the Senate seat, and then because he's out of office January 2027, even if he's looking to run to try for the White House, he's got this 2-year gap. This would put him in a position where he'd be in the United States Senate for a number of years, and then announce a run for the presidency. If we're going fantasy island here, maybe he appoints his wife to the U.S. Senate. I mean, there's a whole
all in the family.
It wasn't never, you don't know. But if Marco Rubio goes, it creates an interesting opportunity for Ron DeSantis to pick himself or someone else.
And if you're not aware, and many of you at home certainly are, but Marco Rubio has steeped himself in foreign policy. Certainly, he hasn't said no to the possibility that it could be him.
Love it.
Yes, he would. Rick Scott, because it's really considered defense and Secretary of State are considered the preeminent cabinet positions, typically Treasury sometimes, but Defense, Secretary of State, you're in one of the most high-profile post in the cabinet, and indeed with the presence and the issues around the world, be a big deal. Rick Scott made it real clear, I win and I'm vying for the Senate leadership.
And that vote is on Wednesday. And an interesting thing is happening this weekend. The social media leaders in the conservative movement, Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk with Turning Point USA, they are pushing for Rick Scott. They are saying that South Dakota Senator John Thune and Texas Senator John Cornyn, who are the two leaders for the position, it's a secret ballot, by the way, they're pushing very hard. They're saying these two guys aren't Trump enough. Rick Scott would be there for Donald Trump. And an election day, as he was declaring victory, Rick Scott had signs that saying the next Senate leader.
Yeah.
So he wants it really badly, and it's really interesting that the very followed by millions, many millions, the social media folks, you know, Charlie Kirk's all 31 years old. They're
pushing for him.
Pushing for him.
It's a clubby atmosphere in the Senate, though, and they may not hold as much sway there. We'll find out Wednesday. First vote. It could be several votes.
Well, I should add, Rick Scott is not the most popular among his
peers,
colleagues, senators.
And part of that was, and he said I was misunderstood when he talked about sunsetting federal programs every 5 years. Democrats jumped on that and said, aha, you want to sunset Social Security? He would later say, no, I do not. But he definitely says, I want to be a deficit hawk. He rubs shoulders the wrong way. He certainly has made no friend with Mitch McConnell, who, even though he will give up that power, will still be a behind-the-scenes power in the Senate.
Well, if you want an example, Nancy Pelosi is no longer House Speaker, but she has a lot of power behind the scenes.
Brian, so much to talk about from a Florida and national perspective. Your thoughts this day?
Well, I think that as we've watched this huge shift of the state, even if you take registered Republicans out of the picture, clearly a significant number of no-party voters, perhaps a chunk of Democratic voters, are voting more conservative. And I think there's a lot of issues that the economy, as I always say, is number one. I think people are really feeling pain in the economy. I think there's some social issues that have people really disturbed. You saw how the Trump campaign, played heavily on the transgender issue, and men, as they put it, playing in women's sports. And rightly or wrongly, it resonates with voters.
And Joe Budd argued that, you know, people, they're like, we care about the economy and we care about the border. It's like he made that argument a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
And some of the most liberal writers that you can read are acknowledging that Democrats need to look at who they're talking to and what they're talking about.
Well, this is the classic hand-wringing after a big loss. You know, when the Republicans lose, they all look in the mirror and go, oh my God, what did we do wrong? And they point fingers at each other, and we should have done this, and we should have done that, and we didn't spend the money the right way, and we had the wrong candidate, and blah, 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 blah. This is, yeah, all of it will be forgotten in a year.
The old political sage, best in the business. We'll be back with Brian with his closing thoughts in a moment.